You're listening to the Lutheran Hour. This is Action in Ministry. And Pastor Seltz, thank you for today's message.
Oh, thanks. You're welcome.
You know, there's always so much more we can learn about this journey of faith.
And Mark, that journey, it begins with our faith in Christ. From there, though, God can do more than we can ever imagine or ever think.
And that's certainly true for our guest today, Pat Burke. She grew up as the child of an alcoholic, abusive father. She vaguely knew of God, but nothing more about God until she was in her early 30s. And her story is featured in our video resource titled The Journey from Unbelief to Faith.
Pat, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. In a previous segment, you told us about your journey to faith. But give us just a brief look back at your life before you met Christ.
Before I met Christ, as a child, I always felt I was never safe. My dad was violent, and you never knew what he was going to do. And I was scared all the time. I hated summer vacations because I was safe at school. And and I didn't know where to turn. Family members didn't have anything to do with us because of my dad. And so we were just left to flounder way back then.
Wow.
And the video tells the story of how you came to faith in Christ. Mm-hmm. That happened when you were in your early 30s. But let's be honest, that didn't mean that everything from that point on has been joy and sunshine, right?
No.
Tell us a little bit about your life after that.
Well, after it was a big change in me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the pain comes whether you're a Christian or not.
Okay.
So different things that I experienced. My husband fell back into addiction. My daughter, 17-year-old daughter, ran off, got involved in drugs, became pregnant, ended up having 4 children, one after the other, with different dads. I took the first 2 oldest boys and raised them. And the Lord just took my hand and walked me through all that, guided me through it. When my husband just took off after 20 years and I had to get a divorce, he guided me to get what job to get, how to do my finances. I mean, it wasn't that I didn't shed any tears. It was that I was no longer alone. Okay. Christ was with me.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Yeah, you're not by yourself in the middle of this. It's real life, though.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
the real life that a lot of folks are dealing with out there today.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing is that even when you feel hopeless, you can't give up hope. And I just knew that, and I think it was God's grace that just when I get so down, and you do, going through terrible things like that. My daughter ended up passing away 4.5 years ago from a drug overdose, and that was horrible. And I don't know how in the world you can get through anything like that if you don't have Christ right there with you. I was so grateful for Christian friends, and just so he calmed me through the whole thing, the whole funeral, everything. It was just amazing, and I'm forever grateful.
Well, and you were just talking about that. How do you cope with things from the past? And you were talking about this Jesus. It's not religious. It's actually knowing that there's a God who's there who really loves you and will never leave you, right?
Absolutely. He's the Father that I always wanted, that I needed, and even better. I can go to him with anything. I know that he loves me. We've got a song at church that we just sang, and it talks about the darling of heaven was crucified. And I thought about that, and I thought, the darling of heaven. I mean, I look at my kids and my grandkids and my great-grandkids now and think how darling they are, and how heartbreaking that would be to have to send them off to be crucified so that I could have another chance. And it just really hit home with me, the darling of heaven.
Came for me.
And that was Christ for you.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about light and darkness. Could you tell us that again? That thought you had?
That was drummed into me through these different things, and there were more things, but because life it has joy and life has pain. But one of the things that I heard was, never forget in the darkness what God has told you in the light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got me through.
Okay. speaking there of what God has told you in His Word,
Right.
the promises that He's made to you.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, you have to read the Bible. It's the instruction book. You have to. To me, I didn't know anything, so I was reading everything and going to Bible classes and still do, because there's always something new.
Yeah.
And
it's the power of God.
that's
to
right.
Get you through these times.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. Pat shares more of her story in this video resource, The Journey from Unbelief to Faith, and you'll also hear the stories of 3 others who followed very different paths to faith.
You know, Mark, we read in the Bible how God changed people, but as we've been talking with you today, Pat, your story reminds us that He's still at work with you.
Right.
He's with you, and that changes everything, but it allows you to face problems that maybe you're going to deal with day by day, just like a lot of other folks do too, right?
Right.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, God bless you. And that's our Action in Ministry segment today, to bless, to empower, and to strengthen your life in Christ for others.